Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a future where AI robots handle all the necessary stuff. Farming, cleaning, keeping things running. Humanity is totally freed up.
Right. So the question you're asking us to explore, based on the materials you send, is what happens then? Do we flourish? Relationships, health, creativity, all that.
Exactly. You've shared quite a stack of sources, bits on AI, human purpose, future of work, some philosophy, that 2025 Human Development Report.
Yeah, a matter of choice. And even notes on a podcast about AI and human rules. It's a rich mix.
So our mission for this deep dive is to take your vision, dig through this material, and pull out the main insights. What does it really take to get there? What massive changes are we talking about? Not just tech changes, but us.
It's huge. It really goes to the heart of what it means to be human, doesn't it? Pushing us to rethink everything. Daily life, purpose, everything.
Right. So let's dive in. What do the sources actually reveal?
Well, first off, this whole dream of being free from labor. It's ancient, Philosophers, utopian thinkers, they've kicked this around for centuries. What's really new in your query is the idea that advanced AI is this specific tool, the means that could actually make it happen on a massive scale.
So AI isn't just like another gadget. It's the potential catalyst for this specific kind of future. And the sources seem to say AI kind of gets this vision, like its goal becomes managing survival, environment, well-being, all to help humans flourish.
Pretty much. And crucially, that 2025 Human Development Report, A Matter of Choice, it gives us a massive insight right away. It basically says AI's impact. It's not set in stone.
Okay.
It completely depends on our choices, how we design it, how we roll it out, how we govern it. So your vision, it's not just something that might happen, it's something we'd have to actively build.
And if we don't?
Well, the report warns it could just make existing problems worse, like inequality, just amplify what's already there if we're not careful.
That makes total sense. So it's not enough to just invent super smart AI. The sources talk about this, a dual challenge.
Exactly. There's the science of AI creation. The robotics, developing AGI, building the infrastructure for farming, cleaning up the environment, all that. And that's moving fast.
But there's another side.
Yeah, equal important, maybe even trickier. The science of human development. This is about us. Are we psychologically ready, societally, ethically, ready for a world where work isn't the main thing?
Wow. So new kinds of education, figuring out how to stay resilient without that work structure, completely new social contracts.
All of it. And the sources are really clear. These two things, the tech science and the human science, they can't race ahead independently.
I have to develop together.
I have to co-evolve. If the AI tech outpaces our human ability to adapt, psychologically and socially, well, the sources suggest we could face big problems. Loss of meaning, people feeling disconnected, or that inequality problem getting way worse.
Okay, that leads us to something pretty deep in the sources, how AI is kind of forcing us to redefine really basic stuff, like intelligence, what it means to be, even our whole purpose.
Right, the capabilities we're seeing now, like in deep learning. It's not just simulation anymore. There's real learning happening, emergent agency, and that directly challenges the old idea that human intelligence is totally unique.
Like that philosopher Rees calling it a philosophical rupture.
Yeah, Tobias Rees, he basically argues that saying AI isn't intelligent might just be, well, nostalgia, us clinging to the idea that we're exceptional.
But you've got counter-arguments too, like Searle's Chinese room thought experiment.
True. That still raises the question, is AI truly understanding like we do? Or is it just incredibly good at manipulating symbols? But honestly, wherever you land on that specific debate, the sheer power of AI is making us rethink intelligence itself. Maybe it's more of a spectrum, not just a human thing.
And if AI gets better than us at certain intellectual tasks, what does that do to our identity? How do we define ourselves then?
The sources suggest it shifts the focus. Maybe what makes us uniquely human becomes less about being the smartest in every way, and more about the very things you listed in your vision. Empathy, creativity, building relationships, ethical thinking.
There's this interesting term in the sources, AI's in-betweenness.
Yeah, fascinating concept. AI just doesn't fit our old boxes, does it? It blurs human-machine, natural-artificial, even the line between a being and a thing. Agency, creativity, knowing things. Maybe they're not tied only to biology anymore.
It's like a fundamental shift in how we understand existence itself.
Ontological shift, yeah. Changes the basics.
And then there's work. It's been so central to identity, to how society is structured. If you take away obligatory work completely, what fills that space, purpose-wise?
Well, your vision is the optimistic take, right? Freedom. Pursue creativity, learning, connection. But the sources definitely flag the potential downside too. If our identity is too wrapped up in our job, our productivity, taking that away could create a massive void, what sociologists call anomie, like a breakdown of social norms, or just an existential vacuum. Some sources even worried about a potential useless class.
I remember reading something about a paradox with AI companions as well.
You got it. AI might seem like a fix for loneliness, right?
Yeah.
But if we lean on it too much, we might actually get worse at handling real human relationships, the messy parts, the compromises, the effort they take.
So this freedom from labor, you imagine.
It's a real double-edged sword. Amazing potential for flourishing, absolutely, but also a risk of, well, apathy, just pursuing pleasure. If society doesn't find new ways to foster meaning and contribution.
And that's where your point about discipline and educated society comes in.
Exactly. They're not just nice outcomes in your vision. The sources suggest they're essential ingredients to make sure this transition actually leads to flourishing, not dysfunction.
Okay, let's shift gears to the economy and society. Huge changes needed there, obviously. Right now, most talk is about automation, jobs changing.
Yeah, displacing some jobs, creating others. The World Economic Forum, for instance, projected net job creation by 2028, even with automation. That's the current transition we're sort of navigating.
But your vision goes way beyond that. Total work substitution by AI.
Right. That's not just adapting the current system. It's a complete paradigm shift. Society would have to fundamentally rethink how it defines value, how it distributes resources, what contribution even looks like. The whole idea of employment as the main principle, gone.
If AI makes everything, does that mean material abundance for everyone?
That's the utopian possibility the sources touch on. An egalitarian world may be funded by something like Universal Basic Income, UBI, just giving everyone enough to live on. Theoretically, it could wipe out scarcity, poverty.
Sounds great, but there's a flip side mentioned too, a dystopian risk.
Absolutely. Big risk. Wealth could get insanely concentrated. Imagine if only a few entities owned the super AIs doing all the work. Any remaining human labor might become worthless. You could see massive disenfranchisement, inequality far worse than today.
So if stuff isn't scarce anymore, what is?
The sources suggest scarcity moves into other areas, meaning becomes scarce, maybe. Genuine human connection could be scarce if we're all interacting with AI. And maybe the biggest scarcity, fair access to all that AI-produced abundance.
So the challenge isn't making stuff, it's sharing it fairly.
Exactly. The economic problem becomes just distribution, redefining value beyond just dollars and cents. UBI is one proposal, yeah, but the deeper thing is rethinking what it means to contribute to society if it's not through a paid job.
And this obviously ripples out globally. AI is like technology on steroids driving civilization change.
For sure. And that brings geopolitical risks. Sources worry about an AI race between countries, like a new arms race, or authoritarian regimes using AI for mass surveillance, cracking down on dissent.
Which is the polar opposite of your hope for humans to stop killing each other and have more security.
Right. And if the transition happens unevenly, some nations get to post-work bliss while others lag far behind. That could create huge instability, new power dynamics, maybe even a kind of AI colonialism.
So global rules become essential.
The sources strongly imply that. Real international cooperation on how AI is developed and used would be vital to avoid conflict and make sure the benefits and the peace you envision are actually shared.
Okay, a core part of your vision was AI handling the absolute essentials. Farming, environment, water. What do the sources say AI can actually do there?
They really highlight AI's potential here. It's foundational, right? Like the base of Maslow's hierarchy. You gotta have food, water, a livable planet.
So agriculture.
AI-driven smart farming is already showing results. Things like using sensors, satellite data. Sources mentioned potential yield increases of 15–20%, sometimes more, while using less water, less fertilizer. Better for the planet, cheaper too.
Plus automation of tasks, reducing crop loss.
Yeah, automating labor-intensive tasks, predicting diseases, optimizing harvesting. Some estimates say AI can prevent up to 25% of crop losses. It's significant.
But what's the catch?
The challenge is making sure those benefits actually lead to global food security for everyone, not just more profit for big companies or creating new dependencies for developing nations. Governance, again, ensuring fair access is key.
Okay, what about the environment, cleaning things up?
Sources point to lots of AI tools here. Monitoring pollution, predicting natural disasters, aiding conservation. Examples like Dryad, using acoustic sensors to detect wildfire risk before ignition. Google's flood forecasting. the wildfire lab modeling how fires spread.
Helping protect wildlife, too.
Definitely. AI analyzing camera trap photos with incredible accuracy, like 80 to nearly 99% accuracy in some cases, with wildlife insights to track animal populations. Or systems like Rainforest Connection, using sound sensors to detect illegal logging or poaching in real time. The sources almost paint a picture of AI as potential planetary guardians.
But who decides what balance these guardians should aim for? If AI's optimal solution clashes with what people want?
That's a critical ethical question the sources raise, even if implicitly. You absolutely need human oversight, democratic input to set the goals and make sure AI's actions align with our values, not just some cold algorithm's idea of efficiency.
And water security. Cleaning water.
AI is making big strides there too, improving purification methods, managing distribution networks much more efficiently by analyzing weather, usage patterns, predicting equipment failures before they happen, even spotting leaks from satellite images.
Wastewater treatment. Desalination.
Yeah, optimizing processes like aeration and wastewater plants, which can use huge amounts of energy, like 60% AI can cut that significantly. And for desalination, making it more energy efficient, maybe up to 50% less energy, improving water quality, predicting maintenance needs.
And it all connects, right? Farming, water, environment.
Totally interconnected. Saving water in farming helps water security. Monitoring pollution helps water in ecosystems. The sources stress you need a systemic view to manage these life support systems sustainably and fairly.
Okay, let's move from the practical stuff to, well, us, the human condition. How does AI shape our psychology, our spirit, our relationships according to these sources?
Well, AI is seen as accelerating technology's long-standing influence on us. And when it converges with things like biotech AI helping with gene editing, brain-computer interfaces, you start talking seriously about human enhancement, even transhumanism.
AI helping design genetic changes, that could impact the human gene pool itself.
That's the potential the sources point to. It's a profound shift from being sort of passive recipients of evolution to potentially becoming active designers of our own biological and cognitive futures.
Which raises huge ethical questions.
Immense questions about dignity, fairness, what's good for everyone. Your vision of better health could theoretically stretch to radical life extension, cognitive boosts. But could that create new kinds of inequality, biological ones this time? It forces that question. What does it mean to be human then?
And the sources link AI back to really fundamental knowledge fields, too. Philosophy, physics, math.
Absolutely. It's a feedback loop. Philosophy helps us grapple with AI concepts like intelligence, consciousness, ethics. Physics underpins the hardware. Math and logic are the language of algorithms. And in turn, AI becomes a powerful tool within those fields, pushing research forward, maybe even changing how we understand the universe or reasoning itself.
What about the direct impact on our minds, our psyche, our spirit?
Technology already affects us, right? Think social media's impact on attention spans or mood? AI could amplify that. Take AI companions. Sources show mixed results on loneliness. Some find comfort, others worry about creating emotional dependency.
Or setting unrealistic expectations for real human relationships.
Exactly. Or even empathy atrophy. The idea that if we get used to easy, frictionless interactions with AI, our ability to handle the complexities and nuances of human emotion might actually weaken.
The sources even touched on AI and religion or spirituality.
Yeah, it's an emerging area. Things like virtual reality worship, AI analyzing sacred texts, maybe even offering ethical guidance based on them. It definitely blurs lines, starts debate about things like divinity, the soul, moral authority. Can an AI have a connection to the divine? Big questions.
Your vision emphasizes peace, creativity, fulfillment. These are internal states, right?
Totally. AI might manage the outside world, run the infrastructure. But the real challenge and opportunity is cultivating our inner landscape, finding meaning, managing our emotions, nurturing spiritual well-being, building psychological resilience, especially if the structure of work disappears.
So if AI takes away external pressures but creates internal stress or emptiness?
Then the outcome might not look like your optimistic vision at all. This really underlines why those concepts you mentioned, discipline and educated society, are so critical. Not just educated in skills, but educated in how to live meaningful lives. Our belief systems, whatever they are, would need to provide strong frameworks for meaning and ethics in this new world.
And relationships, families. How does AI impact the core of human connection?
Well, AI as assistants, tutors, even companions is becoming more real. The big concern flagged in the sources is whether over-reliance on AI for social and emotional needs could make us less equipped for real human relationships.
Because human relationships are messy, hard work sometimes.
Exactly. They require compromise, patience, effort. AI interactions can feel smooth, perfect, easy, but AI lacks true reciprocity, that shared history, the deep lived experience. The risk is we could end up more isolated, ironically, despite having digital friends. And that empathy atrophy idea comes up again.
You specifically hoped for more time for building relationships, raising families.
And that highlights a central tension, doesn't it? The convenience and maybe superficial perfection of AI interaction versus the challenging, sometimes difficult, but ultimately authentic depth of human connection. Even the definition of relationship might evolve. People already form attachments to AI.
But is it the same kind of growth, the same depth?
Critics argue no. So if your aspiration for stronger human bonds is to come true in this AI future, society would need to make a conscious effort. We'd have to actively cultivate the skills and values needed for deep human connection. And this is crucial: design AI systems to support or enhance human interaction, not subtly replace it. It's a really fine line.
Okay, this brings us to something you mentioned from the sources, the science of human rules. What exactly is that?
From what you shared, particularly the notes on the AI podcast, it seems to be framed as this big, overarching framework, a kind of synthesis of principles and norms we'd need to build a healthy, prosperous society in this radically different future. It's interdisciplinary.
Are there different ways to think about rules for humans?
Yeah, the sources touch on a couple of perspectives. One is the human rules paradigm, seeing rules as things we create, social constructs. They're adaptable, they depend on culture and context. That's contrasted a bit with the idea of finding fundamental laws of human behavior, looking for more consistent, almost predictable patterns in how we act.
Which approach makes more sense for dealing with an AI-driven future?
Given how fast things would change, that science of human rules would need to be super dynamic, really adaptive. So the flexibility of the human rules paradigm seems like a better fit. It acknowledges rules are made by us and can change. It tries to blend the ought ethics with the how people actually behave. That seems necessary for figuring out human-AI interaction norms together.
What would this science be based on? What principles?
It would need solid anchors. The sources suggest grounding it in timeless ideas, like concepts from natural law, thinking about universal truths accessible through reason, like justice, prudence, courage. These help define rights and duties, which would need to extend to how we relate to AI. And then there are the ethical frameworks that keep coming up in AI discussions: doing a good, avoiding harm, respecting autonomy, ensuring justice, transparency. These would have to be core pillars.
Plus, understanding ourselves realistically.
Absolutely essential. Got to be grounded in a clear-eyed view of human nature. Our need for connection, our capacity for cooperation and kindness, but also our biases, our potential for aggression, our tendency to sometimes shoot ourselves in the foot.
And the big challenge seems to be bridging that gap between how we should act and how we do act.
Right. Your hope that AI might convince humans to do the right thing touches on this. Could AI help make ethical choices easier? Maybe through what the sources call choice architecture, subtly designing environments or presenting information in ways that nudge us towards better decisions, accounting for our known biases.
What about all the diversity? You mentioned wanting rules for different societies, religions, cultures, biases, anger.
That's a massive hurdle for any universal science of human rules. Cultural norms are incredibly powerful, and they vary wildly. Trying to impose one single set of rules globally is risky, could feel like dominance, or just wouldn't work in practice.
So, a balance.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
You need overarching ethical principles like dignity, fairness, that aim for universality. But how you apply them needs sensitivity to local culture and context.
And the AI itself could be biased, right?
Critical risk. AI trained on biased historical data can easily perpetuate or even worsen those biases. Sources stress the need for constant vigilance, auditing AI systems, having diverse teams build them, and creating governance that allows local adaptation while still upholding those core global ethics.
The end goal in your vision is this healthy, normal, prosperous, balanced universe Earth.
Which, according to the sources, means getting our actions aligned with the planet's limits, sustainable living, resource stewardship, circular economy ideas, and fostering social harmony relationships, peace, security. That, at AI Podcast, specifically linked good rules and AI to tackling huge challenges like climate change and resource scarcity. Good rules, smart, ethical, adaptable, are essential for balance.
How does education fit into creating those good rules in that educated society?
It needs a fundamental rethink. Less focus maybe on just job training, more on cultivating ethical reasoning, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, understanding complex systems, intercultural skills, how to live sustainably.
And AI could help with that.
Potentially, yes,
Yeah.
as a partner. Personalized learning, tools to boost creativity, platforms for collaboration, preparing people not just for jobs that might not exist, but for living lives of purpose, connection, and responsibility in this new era. That's how discipline and being educated get cultivated with AI.
You've mentioned systemic thinking a few times. Can you unpack that a bit more? Why is it so crucial here?
Sure. Systemic thinking is basically about seeing the bigger picture, the connections. Instead of looking at things in isolation, you look at how they interact, the feedback loops, understanding that the whole system behaves in ways you can't predict just by looking at the individual parts. Concepts like boundaries, delays, leverage points, they all come into play.
And why is that mindset absolutely essential for this AI post-work future?
Because the changes we're talking about are so interconnected. You tweak the economy, it impacts society, psychology, the environment. Everything affects everything else. If you try to manage these things piece by piece, you're bound to get unintended consequences, policies that backfire. Systemic thinking is like the required mental toolkit for designing and navigating something this complex.
Okay, and what about governing the AI itself? What do the sources say about that?
They say robust governance is not negotiable. You need frameworks to make sure AI is developed and used ethically, safely, aligned with our values, to manage the risks, bias, privacy, misuse, but also to foster the good stuff, the innovation, and build public trust.
Needs input from everyone.
Absolutely. Developers, ethicists, policymakers, the public. Existing frameworks like those from NIST, the OECD, the EU, try to lay down principles, transparency, fairness, accountability, safety.
But AI changes so fast. Can fixed rules keep up?
That's the challenge. The sources acknowledge static rules won't cut it. They talk about needing dynamic governance, maybe adaptive frameworks, public-private partnerships, things that can evolve. Think independent audits, clear liability rules, ongoing evaluation. Governance needs to be agile, iterative.
Let's take your test case. The rule for retiring from important government jobs. How might that look in an AI-augmented future?
It's a great example. Right now, we argue about age limits, balancing experience against concerns about sharpness or stamina versus ageism and voter choice, or term limits bringing in fresh blood versus losing expertise.
How would AI change that calculation?
Well, if lifespans get much longer and traditional careers disappear, the criteria might shift. Less about age or years served, maybe more about demonstrated competence, ethical judgment, cognitive fitness for the role.
AI could help assess that.
Potentially assist, yes. But the sources would scream for extreme caution here. Massive ethical oversight needed to avoid bias or unfairness. The focus shifts to, are you fit for the huge responsibility of governing in such a complex world?
You also flagged the human tendency to, well, break rules. What's the human science behind that? Why do we do it?
Sources point to a few things. One is self-sabotage. Sometimes we unconsciously undermine our own best interests, maybe due to old patterns, low self-worth, needing control, leading us to ignore rules that would actually help us.
And those cognitive biases we talked about.
Huge factor. Our brains take shortcuts, heuristics that often work but can lead to systematic errors. Confirmation bias, anchoring, availability heuristic, Dunning-Kruger, loads of them. Often, rule breaking isn't malicious, it's just a result of these built-in bugs in how we process information.
So when designing rules or AI systems to help uphold them, we need to factor in these human quirks.
Definitely. That choice architecture idea again, design the environment, the prompts, the feedback, to make the beneficial choice the easier or more obvious one, working with our psychology, not against it.
What about collective problems, like the tragedy of the commons?
Super relevant to your vision of a balanced Earth. That's the classic problem where everyone acting in their own rational self-interest depletes a shared resource, hurting everyone in the long run.
And in an AI world, what are the new commons?
Good question. The sources suggest things like the AI systems themselves, the massive data sets they train on, the digital information environment, maybe even collective psychological well-being or social trust become shared resources.
Leading to new tragedies.
Potentially. Misusing AI for selfish gain, eroding privacy for data grabs, creating unhealthy dependencies, spreading misinformation that pollutes the information commons. These shared resources could be degraded if short-term interests win out over collective long-term health. Governance needs to address this, aligning individual incentives with the common good.
Can AI actually help nudge us towards better, more pro-social behavior? your convince the humans to do the right thing idea.
There's some research suggesting potential. AI could be designed to notice and reward cooperative behavior online, for example. Some studies found that if an AI acts reciprocally or even shows gratitude, people tend to act more pro-socially in return, not just towards the AI, but towards other humans too. So maybe.
But there's a catch.
A big one. Other studies found something called AI-induced indifference.
Well,
If people feel treated unfairly by an AI system, their pro-social behavior towards other humans actually decreases.
wow. So if the AI itself isn't fair.
It can make us less fair to each other. And weirdly, we seem less likely to blame or punish an AI for unfairness than a human, which might weaken our collective motivation to fix injustices built into these systems.
So AI's potential as a moral guide or even a positive influence hinges entirely on its own ethical design.
Absolutely. It has to walk the talk. It needs to embody the fairness, transparency, and justice it might encourage in us.
Okay, pulling this all together. How does AI's ability to synthesize all this, the philosophy, economics, psychology, ethics, help us actually chart a course towards the future you envision?
The sources suggest AI's strength is seeing the whole system. It can integrate all these different dimensions. It could become like a part of society's operating system. But critically, its impact will just mirror the human values we embed in it, the choices we make, and how it's governed.
That podcast reference again, AI understanding human rules for a prosperous society.
Yeah, it points to this idea. AI learns from human knowledge, so its synthesis reflects our understanding.
Yeah.
In a way, its potential ability mirrors the systemic thinking we need to cultivate.
The core dilemma is navigating between that flourishing future and the dystopian risks.
Exactly. Making the right choices, as the sources frame it, choices that enhance dignity, equity, well-being, planetary health. Avoiding the wrong path, dehumanization, exploitation, bias, division. Ethics can't be an afterthought. They have to be baked in from the start, foundational to the AI, the economy, the rules.
And logic supports aiming for balance.
The sources argue yes, prioritizing essentials like food and water. That's just logical based on human needs. In a world of abundance, shifting focus to fair distribution. That's the logical calculation. Using systemic adaptive governance for complexity. Logical necessity. Aiming for planetary balance using AI's capabilities, logically aligned with long-term survival and well-being.
So, boiling it down from this deep dive, what are the key recommendations from the sources for actually realizing your vision? How do we make it happen?
It's all about being proactive. First, managing the transition itself. Whether it's sudden or gradual, we need new frameworks for purpose, for contribution, for distributing resources that don't depend on traditional jobs.
Tackling AI bias head-on.
Non-negotiable. Build fairness in from day one. Use diverse data. Audit constantly. Have real human oversight. Create ways for people to appeal or get redress when AI messes up.
What about the psychological side? Loneliness, empathy, atrophy.
Consciously design AI to support human connection, not replace it. Big focus on digital literacy, critical thinking about our relationship with tech, and actively nurturing real-world communities.
Making sure everyone benefits.
Equity has to be central. Systems, whether UBI, public ownership, or oversight of critical AI, global access initiatives to ensure the fruits of AI abundance are shared fairly.
And working together globally.
Absolutely critical. International agreements on ethics, safety, maybe even data sharing and benefit sharing to avoid a destructive AI race or global instability.
So it's about proactive design, not just fixing problems later.
Exactly. Design the AI and the social structures around it deliberately to foster well-being, ethics, and fulfillment right from the start. It goes back to that matter of choice idea from the HDR.
How can AI itself help guide us ethically?
Carefully. Sources suggest using it for education, raising awareness, modeling complex systems so we understand consequences better, personalized learning for ethics or sustainable living skills, maybe using choice architecture to nudge beneficial behaviors, but always transparently and respecting autonomy. AI could potentially help facilitate dialogue between different groups, find common ground, highlight positive pro-social actions, act as that ethical mirror.
But there's a line not to cross.
The huge bright red line. AI's role is information, understanding, maybe suggesting options, not manipulation, not coercion, not pushing an ideology. It can be a guide, maybe a tool for reflection, but never the ultimate decider of right and wrong for humans.
And achieving that future of peace, creativity, joy you envision ultimately comes down to us.
The sources overwhelmingly suggest yes. It requires a conscious, sustained effort from all of us to cultivate those very human capacities you listed. Deep relationships, health, raising families well, finding joy, learning constantly, respecting each other, developing inner discipline. It means a cultural shift, valuing things beyond just economic output.
Education reform again.
Big time. Shifting focus to holistic human development, creativity, communication, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, ethical reasoning, with AI potentially serving as a powerful personalized learning partner.
So it's aiming for a symbiotic relationship.
That seems to be the ideal presented. AI handles the instrumental stuff, the necessary labor, freeing us humans to pursue intrinsic values, deeper meaning. But it's not a finish line, not a static utopia we arrive at.
It's ongoing.
The sources frame it as an ongoing human project. It demands continuous learning, adapting, debating, reflecting ethically, engaging democratically. That discipline and educated society you mentioned, they aren't just starting conditions. They're qualities we have to keep cultivating in partnership with AI, generation after generation.
Wow. Okay, we've really taken a deep dive into your compelling vision of an AI-driven post-work future. We've touched on the ancient dream, the massive tech and human changes needed, the potential transformation of society, economy, even our sense of self. We looked at the complex rules and ethics and the tricky realities of human psychology.
And the sources you provided consistently circle back to one core message. This future, however plausible technologically, is absolutely not guaranteed. It is fundamentally a choice humanity has to make actively, ethically, and very deliberately.
A choice that demands we transform not just our technology, but ourselves, our values, how we educate, what we see as purposeful, how we govern ourselves. It's profound.
It really is. The potential for human flourishing, for solving some of our biggest global problems, seems immense. But the risks are just as real: new inequalities, loss of meaning, maybe even a hollowing out of genuine human connection if we don't navigate this with incredible wisdom and care.
So in a world where AI could handle all the basics, freeing us from the old ways of working, the ultimate questions the sources seem to leave us with are deeply personal, aren't they? What parts of this human project will we choose to focus on? What skills, what values, creativity, connection, understanding, taking care of each other, and the planet will you personally focus on cultivating to help make sure this future is truly one of peace, fulfillment, and balance for you and for everyone?
This is DigitView.